Welcome one and all to LZS Live. And as of this point, we still aren't actually live. I mean, we're recording this live, I suppose. That counts for one thing. Let's just keep that in mind. As we move into this week's subject, which will be all about video games, but more about the things we hate about video games.
Is it still a running joke if the joke isn't funny anymore?
Yes, no, it's fucking hilarious.
It's called beating a dead horse.
Oh, yeah.
Ew,
It's the EA marketing
And we're
principle.
gonna keep-
Wait, sorry, this is going to be a really Bram comment, but why has a dead horse got an erection, and why are you beating it?
Oh, Jesus.
I didn't say beating off of that horse, but that could have been a thing they could have said.
See?
Just like pus coming out of his ball sack.
It's all about capitalization. It's about helping your Uncle Jack off a horse and helping your Uncle Jack off a horse.
Oh, no.
That's
Video games.
surprisingly
That jump,
surprisingly
that jumped
not
ships
related to
very
video
quickly.
games.
That jumped ships faster than anyone could anticipate.
Has everyone ever seen like a train leave the station, but like as soon as it leaves the station, it doesn't stay on the track and it just crashes into a house? That's basically what this podcast was for now.
No, but
It's
I've
like,
seen the
yeah,
train.
we're gonna talk about video games.
I've seen a
Jacking off horses. Really?
I've seen a trainer derail and land on a dolphin's fin.
What?
Hold on, I'll find the article.
The fuck? Okay, whatever. That's definitely not what we're talking about now.
There's probably
I
some
mean-
glitch in Cyberpunk he's referring to.
I mean, there's probably some Skyrim mods where you can jack off a horse, so that's probably then we get back on topic that way. I mean, talking about video games.
Just like Todd Howard intended.
I'm sure we all have eventually, and we're gonna get to that point. We all have our pet peeves and like specific things that we hate. But like more general, let's start about the video game industry, because there's some things
it's
that
a
we
shit
definitely have our problems with as well, and we may come to repeat ourselves from like previous episodes as well when we start talking about stuff like microtransactions or crunch and that type of stuff, or talking about gamers in particular, because there's some things that I don't particularly hate that other people may hate. A good example of that is like delays in video games. I don't care about it when that happens. It's like, okay, the game will be good later when it comes out.
It's
Except when
coincidental
it's Cyberpunk.
because
But I mean,
you talk about delays, but today, the day of recording, the Harry Potter RPG Hogwarts Legacy just got delayed till 2022. So Twitter has already been in uproar about it.
See, now you got all the Harry Potter fans being very angry. The last time that happened is when they announced that Albus Dumbledore was secretly gay.
I mean there's one thing good about this delay
did
as
they
well.
have
On top
something
of the
to say
fact that I
then?
don't have a problem with delays.
I'm-
I mean, what if in that time J.K. Rowling dies? Then if we don't buy the game, we're not giving money to that turf cunt at that point.
Jesus.
So that's fine, I
That would be a
suppose.
miracle. What? Sorry. Sorry, did I speak out loud? I
Yeah,
don't
but
mean to.
then we never find out if Hagrid is transgender.
For God's sake, we're not getting on that topic.
No, definitely. I don't think she's ever gonna change any characters into transgender because, well, like I said, she's a turf cunt, so that's never gonna happen. So,
Wow, Lord.
moving away from that fucking topic.
But yeah,
But I
delays.
feel
Yeah.
like you talking about delays. I mean, let's look at the biggest disappointment of 2020. Cyberpunk delayed 3 times last year, and God, every time Twitter. I mean, developers got given death threats. Like the fuck. I don't.
Yeah, that's just
My question is always, the people complaining about this, what would they have rather developers do?
Well, that's what I mean. Where do they think it gets them?
I don't know.
It doesn't make them faster. If anything,
crunch harder.
If anything, okay, if we look at it from a psychological point of view, if you threaten someone with death to finish a video game, they will panic, rush it, and then you get a pile of crap, which is exactly what Cyberpunk 2077
I mean,
is.
what-
So it actually all makes sense.
What else can it do? Like hire twice the amount of people, and then charge twice the amount of money for the game eventually?
I mean,
like what alternatives are there?
Let me get one thing straight. As someone working in the IT industry by and large and software development, hiring more people doesn't always solve the problem. Onboarding and getting
that
people...
creates other
Yeah,
problems.
exactly.
as
And
well.
like the whole onboarding process to get people involved and actively working on the product takes a while. And by a while, I mean a long time.
Yeah.
So both money and resources aren't, always the solve all of the video games industry.
So the only option there is actually time. Either you release crappy shit that's not been tested properly, and then you get a shitload of bugs, or you just delay a game further or indefinitely, which is probably what they should have done with the this generation's versions of Cyberpunk. Because I don't know, has the PlayStation 5 version been released now?
Not the upgraded version, but you can play it on PlayStation 5.
But then you're just playing the PS4 version.
Well, that's
on the
what I mean.
5, so that's not the same.
Well, that's
thing.
the thing. So a lot of people have said that the same bugs with the PS4 version still crop up on PS5. It's the code.
Because you're playing the same game.
Yeah, exactly. There's no real
Obviously.
difference. It's like I can play a game from 2003 on my PC, but it's not an enhanced version. It's the same thing. It's the same game from all the way back then.
No, it's not like it's not like if you were to somehow put a floppy disk in your computer somehow, if that would still even be possible.
Well, that's what
if you would have like an
for. I've just
extension
been
or
putting my
something
dick in
to read that, and then play like a game that was on a
Weird
floppy disk.
space.
It's not like that's gonna be in 4K all of a sudden. So
You know, I want the floppy disk version of Cyberpunk. That sounds wicked.
I think someone's made an 8-bit version already, and it already.
It probably runs better.
You beat me to the punchline. God damn it.
Cheers.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't think 8-bit would be what you would get from a floppy disk. I think that's more like a text-based adventure at that point.
Still better.
You come across a troll.
I mean, isn't that what Cyberpunk is or was originally as a video game format? It was text to.
There was a tabletop game. I'm not sure if there was a video game.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking about.
But yeah,
I mean, tabletop games probably come from those text-based. Like they're
Yeah.
slightly
in a way,
similar
they're
because you have to select what you do.
It's just
Whatever. That's the thing. Obviously, the
do.
delays, like you said, that's a good bit of insight. Like, if you could from the beginning maybe have like a bigger group of people and throw more money at it, for example, then maybe you could get it finished faster. But like, if you notice that, oh shit, we're not making our deadline, you can't just magically make people that are super competent and already know everything about your project appear and be like, we're going to fix this shit. No, that's not how
It's
it
like a
works.
bunch
They
of
need like months
mining
to
dwarfs
prepare
coming
them.
in. Yeah, we can build this. Bob the Builder on the
know how
fucking
this
front
works.
door.
We have magically cloned all of our people. Don't worry, clones aren't people. We won't be charging you extra because clones are
when we release
getting
the
any
project,
wages.
they die.
And then we punch them up into little powder and snort them.
At the after party.
Executives. But the thing
Oh,
is,
God.
we can pretty much summarize that, at least for the video game players, the consumers of the product. The delays have basically no impact. You either get a shitty game now, or potentially a good game later. That's like the only two things you can have. The only reason they actually do delay or release on time with a terrible product is usually, well, the monetary aspect of it, right? And in that way,
Investors, right?
Cyberpunk kind of actually did succeed because they broke even on open day.
Yeah, that's literally what I was about to get around to. We talk shit about this game, and in fairness, you know, Xbox Series X has actually been certified as the best play to play it because it's not broken. It's not, you know, it's got a powerful bit of hardware there, you know, and that's what they built for that particular version. Well, Xbox Series X or the X. What's the mid-generation upgrade for the Xbox One last console generation? I can't remember.
Series S?
It wasn't.
I don't know what that one was called.
No, the Series S is the really small Xbox Series X.
Oh wait,
I think
yeah.
it's
It's like I
Xbox
said,
One
I-
X. Xbox One X. The version they built for that is basically what they've certified as the best version to play. I mean, it's still got like bugs and stuff, but it is certifiably still the best version of it to play. So it's not a broken game. It's just old consoles, and yes, I mean, I've had bugs with the game myself, but yeah, like I was just about to say, where you brought up the very thing. The game still broke even, and has brought huge amounts of money and cash flow into CD Projekt Red. So they've done exactly what they set out to do. Apart from not
And there's a
make
chance
game.
that it's going to
That's
be a good game when the actual next-gen releases are actually unloaded on us.
Granting them even more money,
And-
which is
If you bought the game and you have a PS5, somehow you don't need to buy it again. So, I mean,
and
But we're talking console versions. I've got the PC version. My game run smoothly, but I had very generic bugs. The one bug that made me rage quit, and I haven't played it since, was there were some enemies, and I had very good weapons, and I tried to kill them, and they just weren't taking any damage. I was like, fuck this. That's an unplayable game, so I quit. That was like the final.
Aren't you
straw
sure
for me.
you weren't in like a high level area, like
Well,
a
honestly, Bram, it
Fallout
did
New
cross my
Vegas
mind,
type of
but
thing?
then I went back to check and I hadn't. I was no more than like a couple of blocks away from where the house is in the game, so I was like, they can't be that bad. They were just random thugs. It doesn't matter.
Really
The
sucks at
bait.
video games.
It just
How
that
dare
really does
you?
remind me of like Fallout New Vegas when it's like, oh, I'm just right outside of the city. Let's just go behind this corner. Oh, there's a giant scorpion. I wonder if I'm dead. I mean, that's kind of how that worked. Even though that's still one of the best games of all time, in my opinion. But that's not about talking about shitty
The
games.
game is not buggy, it's old-fashioned.
It's old.
And rotten and full of bugs.
Oh dear.
It's part of the aesthetic.
Ooh.
It's the texture pop-ins are part of the fucking art direction.
You know, if the sound fuck-ups, it's cyberpunk aesthetic.
But like, Goat Simulator is a game built on being a buggy game.
Yeah, but it's not sold as, you know, first of all, as the work of a millennia, and also they didn't kill
that's
fucking developers to get it.
I think it's just that, you know, we talk about this and then in my head I'm like, there is actually like a weird niche of games that's built to be buggy for you to break.
That's more like sandbox games, like in
Yeah.
Gmod and stuff. That's more that type of stuff. So it's just about having fun
Skyrim.
there and trying to purposefully break stuff because it's just funny.
Is that what you just said?
Maybe.
Also, I don't like, sorry, sidebar, I don't like that Todd Howard is about to touch an Indiana Jones game. I'm very upset.
I don't like that anybody's touching the corpse of Indiana Jones.
Do you remember that South Park episode where they molested Indiana Jones?
I mean, I've never seen South Park a full episode, but no, hold on. But no, get over it. You know it's not my humor. But that is
You have
recollected.
humor?
Was it like
Wow,
Steven
fuck
Spielberg and
you.
someone else?
Well,
I don't
apparently
remember.
I found you funny, so clearly not.
And they were molesting him. They were molesting him. Now I just imagine
I
a scene
joust
where
you,
that's
sir.
happening, and then Todd Howard shows up, is like, "Got room for one more?"
Oh, well, that's
And
the
just
thing.
takes off his
And then
pants.
I
it
don't like that Todd
immediately,
Howard is...
and it immediately transitions to like that South Park scene with Todd Howard and like going, "We're sorry. We're sorry."
Well, that's another game we should bring up. Fallout 76 is still a piece of shit to this day. It's not done on No Man's Sky. That game is... I mean, you now have to pay a subscription service to get a private server to play on by yourself with your friends.
But
Yeah,
there's a market
even
for
though
it.
I feel like
Don't
that's
say that.
the problem with this game. That's a big problem. They put the only thing that could be good about this type of game behind the paywall. What I said when they announced Fallout 76, my thoughts were, if you just make a Fallout 4 or better Fallout New Vegas type game, and you can play it like in a Minecraft setting with just like having your friends be there, they can also work on your base or something and be there with you and go on missions with you. That sounds like a fine type of thing where you can basically have like a shared server with your friends. But like a full-on open server, who the fuck wanted that ever? That was my first question for that. And that's what they basically get. But then if you want the thing that's actually a viable product, then you have to pay extra for it. Even though it's not a viable product because they didn't make Fallout 4, but online they made Fallout shits and just, I don't know, give people moldy helmets and fucking bags that were made out of shit instead of like proper materials.
Also, it was a game that was built on a really old engine. I think it was the engine they used to build. What was the game they released before Fallout 4? I'm trying to remember what it was. But it was the engine that was built for that, and it had already by then it was already a bit predated. They just kind of semi-updated it, and then they tried to build a full multiplayer game with this old engine that's for single players. So
I mean, but
The thing is, we're almost touching on a very good point here. Basically, the only good thing about Fallout 76 is now hidden behind a paywall. Alright? But if it's hidden behind a paywall and the game is still going, that means people are paying for it. And you have the same thing with microtransactions, you have the same thing with loot boxes, pre-orders that are not worth it. And that's basically all it comes down to. You always have this, granted, very vocal voice of reviewers and the video games press going, hey, this is not, ethically correct, but it works.
That's more of like the independent people than
exactly.
For example, Jim Sterling or something. But people who are in the pocket and who get their game copies for free, they're more like, yeah, this is a good game. Yeah. I like this game.
Yeah, but
I play it with my friends while we check each other out. Whatever.
Like you just heard the IGN hiring process.
Oh, sorry. So I just looked it up. Fallout 4 and Skyrim are made with the same engine. So.
Wow.
Which means they can now put Fallout 76 on your smart fridge.
Well, I believe. I believe that
all your food will immediately rot.
I believe, but it's like, it's the only way I've got describing it is like, and I might be wrong here, but it's like they have a toy box and they just put stuff in it and they just keep putting stuff in it. They don't buy a new bigger toy box to rebuild and reorganize their toy box. They just keep putting stuff in the old box and it's overflowing. And it's like, this is too much. It's too much stress.
That's the thing, right? If your kids are still playing with the toys you got them, why would you get new ones? Especially if they pay
kids?
for it.
Why would you have children?
So they pay me for it.
Kind of. I mean, if they want to keep like an ongoing type of thing, they need to bring the new toys right before people get bored of the old toys.
Well, yeah.
Also, talking about the fridge, I have one comment when you said about the smart fridge. If you put a Bethesda game on your smart fridge, you're basically turning into a vending machine.
Oh. Good point.
Do you think
or an EA game that would have the same effect.
Like one of those coin slots for like all the arcade machines is magically going to appear.
I already bought this food.
Oh. You want your tomatoes?
I made that lasagna myself. Pay €5 for lasagna. I made it myself. I already bought all the
you're laughing, but in a few years we'll have the Amazon Corporation, getting a patent on breathable air.
See, oh no, I hope that's not true.
Thanks, Jeff Bezos.
Fuck you, Jeff Bezos. The food I want is that weird hydration thing in Back to the Future 2 where a pizza's the size of like a thumb and then it just explodes. That's what I want.
Huh.
Doesn't sound tasty though.
No, it doesn't, but I want it. It was in a
just
movie.
want
That
food
makes it
that's
real,
tasty.
right?
Yeah, like the dinosaur.
Like the
Like the
hoverboard.
dinosaur. That narrows it down. Yes. What would I have? One dinosaur, please.
There was a no, wait, was it a shark? Which was it?
I don't know what you're on about.
The 3D movie from Back to the Future 2.
Oh, Shark.
Was a shark. Okay,
It was Jaws
let's
like
assume
12.
I was talking about Jurassic Park. Back on topic.
Yes, let's get back. Like we said, like you basically step from one thing to another, but the first part that we were talking about, we'll get back to the microtransactions at one point, but we actually were talking first about, well, mainly about the delays, but we weren't really talking about the delays. We were actually talking about the gaming community and their reaction to things that aren't really problems, or just the toxicity within the gaming community, to be fair. I mean, you have that in online games where you just have like the rudeness and that type of stuff, but that's not really something that has to do with game itself all that much.
Talking about that, I've recently been getting into Star Wars: The Old Republic, and the chat on that is the most racist, sexist, violent thing I've ever read in my life. Can I just say, the description of Jar Jar fucking Rey is not something I will ever repeat from my lips, but it was something I've read and it's etched into my mind.
Griff, are you familiar with my comment section?
Yes, I was perusing it earlier when I was doing my rewatch. Coincidentally, you talk about this on the very day.
But yeah,
Oh my God.
I mean, gamer chat. Let's break that down for a second. Jesus Christ.
It's disgusting.
I mean, if like things like social media give people a platform to be their most despicable being they could be, then video game chat amplifies that by 100.
If that was bad, if that was hate, video game chat is the Nazis. That's the jump up. You have terrible people and then the Nazis.
Yeah. And not like the Nazi soldiers in the trenches, but the, high ups
Yeah.
in the bunker.
I mean,
Nazi clan.
the big difference that there is though between like the social media and the video game chat is like a lot of the times, luckily, a lot of those people that are saying all this sexist and racist shit are just like young people, and with some luck, they may grow out of that and become passable human beings. But then, like on social media, it's like the older generations that are like saying like all sorts of like crazy, like racist and sexist shit there. And I mean, that's more concerning, and that's why I don't really think this is. And that's also like the more of like that side of like that's more like an online gaming type of thing. So if you don't play online games, you don't really get into contact with people. A lot of what's gaming chats and stuff, but you would still come into contact with a toxic gaming community anyway.
Absolutely. I was actually thinking about it right now. I was actually thinking on the topic of gatekeeping, which I have my fair share of experience with.
Easy mode in Dark Souls? No way! That type of gatekeeping.
You seem confused.
I am. Please explain this to the layman.
Well, gatekeeping is basically how do you explain it? Let's assume you're interested in a game, and you try to
rarely, but sure.
Let's say it's a well-established franchise. Okay.
Rarely, but sure.
And you run into this community that has already built itself around the game, the creators, and basically everything around it.
Okay.
Now let's assume somebody from that community approaches you and is the biggest dick you've ever met.
Isn't that how we became friends?
Kind of. Well, to break it down, gatekeeping is really just assuming that you are a better person because you're already in that community and actively trying to keep other people out of it or criticizing people who are not that familiar with whatever you are familiar with for the smallest mistake.
Right.
Which is also surprising about that is that could also be sexist and racist.
Absolutely.
Surprise, right? Women can't play video games.
That's a form of gatekeeping. Absolutely.
That's definitely a form of gatekeeping.
In that case, the community would be, games in general. I hope not every male gamer is like that for the sake of all of humanity, but yeah, it's.
I mean, Barry is better at Apex than I am, so it's not.
Yeah, but she's only doing it for attention. Yeah, it's, women don't play video games. Or watch Game of Thrones. Or breathe.
Oh, breathe.
I mean, that's the logic behind it. It's just this. If we take this example of women don't play video games, that's just misogynistic garbage.
Yeah, why? Like, I don't really get it. Like, I don't really get where that comes from. Like, maybe a lot of games in the beginning, when video games were originally made, they were like, no, in the beginning, video games were like fairly neutral, right?
Exactly.
And at one point, they may have gotten more to like the male power fantasy, which like, you are man. You are strong, barbarian man, and then just like that type of shit.
Even then,
I would like you to show them a picture of me. That would definitely counter-argue everything they say.
Yeah, it's just Griff's power fantasy.
I beg you, what?
No, but even then, if you're playing this ultra buff Greek god type of archetype, why wouldn't a woman want to play that? But
yeah,
that's not inherently something that makes it playable by males only. And I would argue that there are very little games outside of maybe Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball that are targeted toward males.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of weird if somebody would say, like, yeah, women can't play God of War because it's a man. That's like, but there are also people who don't want to play like something like Horizon Zero Dawn because it's a woman.
Raider.
It's like, what? Or like Tomb Raider, yeah. That's like, what's this shit? If I sometimes make a female character if it's like optional to make your character. I often play as a female character for some reason.
I also often play as a female character because I'm like, I'm done playing as men. It's like, I am one. What the fuck? I don't want to be this.
With man.
I even have a resting bitch face in Cyberpunk.
I thought I'd go posh for that Ryzen voice.
See, like I said, I don't get the logic behind it. Like, oh, I'm not British. I'm not allowed to play Watch Dogs 3. What?
No. You have to provide your national insurance number with your passport as you enter your details into the Ubisoft website before they take all your money and then your identity before confirming you're British and landing you over a copy of Watch Dogs Legion and slapping you on the ass and being like, off you go, chittily poo.
That's right. Like,
that's just the most preposterous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, but here it sounds like this is the opposite of what actually is going on, because this would be like the developers say you can't play this because you're not British. And it's like people here. It's like the people actually gatekeeping, like being like, you can't play this because you're not a man, or that's a girly game.
Wait,
you can't
so
play that as a man.
Can we not
That type
play?
of
Can we
shit.
not play Cyberpunk unless we have a mechanical penis? Like, is that?
You don't? Get out.
I heard that the game is harder if you have a
It's an
circumcised
extendable
penis.
piston. It needs a lot of oil. Comes with a DLC vibrator.
I'm just picturing weird, like with one of those oil
No.
canisters whilst
No.
he's having sex.
Stop picturing me having sex inside like no.
So instead of lube, you have to use oil.
That's what the US does, isn't it?
Well, the Greeks also did that with olive oil.
Oh
I think.
yeah.
I can't breathe.
Well.
Griff just looks over. Why is there olive oil?
You remember that derailed train we were talking about?
I mean, we were on track for a long time. So.
Fair,
Yeah, we
fair.
needed to
At least
derail.
we crashed
And
into the
then it
next
got a little
station.
slippery from all the oil.
Somebody looped the tracks.
I think we'd just oil jizzed on the track and it just. Whoa!
Yeah, some US army dudes are gonna invade my body. This is getting weird.
Wait, why did you jizz on the tracks? Was he a trained sexual?
Yeah.
Oh, for God's
Did-
I like
Quote,
trains.
was it an ASDF movie? Was it an ASDF movie? Look, it's a trained sexual or something like that. Wasn't
I
that?
like trains.
Yeah, I think that was that. So, yeah, getting back on track, yeah, I mean, like, when it comes to
Getting
communities,
back on track.
I mean, gatekeeping, delays, like, there's a lot of stuff that's toxic about the community, like the chats, obviously, as well.
It is
Then there's-
horrible.
Then there's also, like, the type of thing where, it is part of gatekeeping, but it is kind of its own thing as well, where you have, like, these discussions where people either get too much involved with what the game should be, and they're like, yeah, the game should be this and this and this, where they just want this, they have this image of the game in their head, and it has to be like that.
Yep.
And then the other people who like endlessly like defend the developers' choices to be like, yeah, the game did this, and even if it's like has to be some type of, like, I think we fall like somewhere in between. We do have our criticisms of games, but then at the same time we realize that like the developers have their own visions. But there's like people who's like, the game has to be like this. It can't be slightly different. It has to be like this. And on the other side, you have to get, yeah, but the developers did this stupid thing, which looks very dumb, but like that's very good because that goes along with this. I can't come up with a reason why they would defend some stupid shit.
It's really just
sometimes.
toxic hype versus toxic fandom, right?
Yeah, basically. That's what it is, actually. That's also a big part of gaming and especially with the community.
Yeah, the topic of hype. One of my all-time favorites. For context, we three actually had various different discussions, especially me and Griff had almost arguments about the topic of pre-order,
Yeah.
which I would argue is an element of hype. If that's a good or a bad thing, it is, I think, debatable. And I think, like, oftentimes it kind of feeds into like this feedback loop of constant going off about other people, which just inflates all of this toxicity.
I mean, weird has converted me. I hardly pre-order games anymore. The only two
Call me
games
the
I
fucking
pre-ordered
messiah.
the only games I pre-ordered in the last 18 months was 3. One was Cyberpunk, don't kill me. And the other 2 were The Last of Us Part 2 and Animal Crossing. And we knew I was going to pre-order The Last of Us Part 2, you know. I think that was on the table. But apart from that, I didn't even pre-order Spider-Man. My favorite game of the last generation of console, I did not pre-order. I got it on day 1 because need to see how it looks, you know.
It's yeah, that's similar to, I don't really pre-order things. There's only an exception that is basically, do I like this franchise?
And Perry.
And do I get something physical with it that represents the franchise rather than the game if it's shit, for example? Like, I have this, like, the Resident Evil 2 remake. If that was shit, I would have still had this Leon statue, and I would have just been more akin to the actual other good Resident Evil games. But the Resident Evil 2 remake was very good, so I got a good game. I got the keys that are in the game, and I got the Leon statue, so I got those physical things. That's the only reason to pre-order. Same with, like, The Last of Us. Same with the other game that I pre-ordered, which was... the Final Fantasy 7 remake, because I got a Sephiroth statue with that. It's mostly those things that, like, do I get this statue? Would this statue be cheaper if I get it with a pre-order than if I would buy something similar? Then I'm like, yeah, let's pre-order.
Yeah.
Because normally they are fucking expensive, those things, if you really get them outside of the game.
Jesus.
The pre-order is sometimes expensive where you're like, oh, fucking 200 euros for this fucking pre-order because there's a statue. Then you go look at the similar statues and like, oh, 300 to 500. Yeah, sorry, then I'm pre-ordering the fucking game.
Yeah.
That's the only reason for it. That's a physical thing that doesn't go away. Any in-game thing you get goes away the moment some wanker decides, oh, you can't buy this game anymore, or we take it off of our servers.
Yeah. But I think you are doing something that a majority of the consumers of video games do not do, and you actually give it a bit of monetary and value thought.
From your personal perspective, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, value isn't always monetary. That's I think that's kind of what Bram meant with, for example, having a statue of Leon from Resident Evil without the game potentially being good. But I think in recent years, publishers and developers have found a way to kind of creep into that mindset and give things that seem to have value, pre-order bonuses, digital pre-order bonuses, to incite a purchase.
You like play it 2 days early. That advantage goes away 2 days later. So it's
if I may bring up my pre-order with The Last of Us Part 2. I when it first got announced for a pre-order, when we first got its release date, and they were like, "Yep, it's up for pre-order now." Of course, you know, back then I was like, I'd love to get the one that was with the Ellie statue, but for some reason in the UK, that it wasn't happening. The Ellie statue exclusive collector's edition was just not a thing in the UK, and I could not understand why. And everything else was like, here's a concept art book, have some postcards, here's a badge. I'm like, I don't fucking want that.
Griff, we did check the website for game, and it was a thing, but it came out later than it should have, and it was gone very quickly.
Oh, that must be it.
So
then.
it was it was announced later than the original pre-order. Like, you could pre-order the game with like some other bullshit, and then some weeks later you could pre-order the game with that statue, but it was like only for 2 days and it was fucking gone. So that was a problem.
No. So anyway, so that happened, and then, you know, let's flash forward to when it actually was getting released, and I hadn't solidified my pre-order because I was kind of waiting around for that collector's edition. Anyway, COVID happened and blah blah blah, and I worked out that I wasn't going to get a physical copy because I normally get physical copies of games. I don't like getting them digitally because, first off, what if I want a refund, or I exchange it for another game at my local shop, or, you know, all those factors. But I decided I'm just going to get it on the PlayStation Store. So I looked at all the pre-order bonuses, and it was like, have some extra crafting materials. Here's a handy book when you log into the game. Have the soundtrack. And now, my best friend, she went ahead and pre-ordered the Ultimate Edition because she was like, oh, well, I get the soundtrack, I get nice wallpapers, I get this and I get that. And I was like, but you're not going to... First off, you're not going to use some of those. And some of those, give you like an extra... If it was levels, extra 2 levels at the beginning of the game. For me, I didn't see any point in that. And I just bought a bog standard edition. It came with the game and I think a wallpaper, and that was it. And I never even installed the wallpaper into my console. Because, like, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted the bloody game. So, for me, like, some of these pre-order bonuses are just so bullshit because they're nothing. They are fucking just wasted
hot air, basically.
Yeah. And I think Last of Us is still one of the better examples in that sense. I think there are pre-order bonuses which are just flat out deceitful. I
mean... But like we said, even the physical editions like can be bad because, like, Fallout 76, they had their like the helmets that molded up, and then you had those fucking bags that weren't made out of the canvas material but were made out of shitty plastic,
which is just flat up false advertising. In my opinion, that was a crime.
because for example, I bought like a sheriff's bag that was like a replica of like the Walking Dead, like the sheriff's bag with all the guns in it normally, that type of sheriff's bag. I bought like a replica of that, and it was an actual canvas bag. Though that was pretty expensive. It was like €100 or something, but that's like an actual canvas bag. So I do get that the material is expensive, but then they should have just raised the price for the shit and just made it that way. That's the only thing I could come up with at that point.
But
if I would have gotten at that point, if I would have ordered that as an actual item, not like as a pre-order for a game or something, and that would have made out of plastic when it arrived. Jesus fucking Christ, we get a bad wish situation at that point. I would be very angry.
So sorry, Brandon, to interrupt you. I've just looked up the digital Last of Us pre-order exclusives. So I got the standard edition. Literally, it was just the full game. It had a digital version of exclusive avatar. So like, your PlayStation avatar, you could have that. Ammo capacity upgrade and crafting training manual. So that was the only thing that came with the standard edition, bearing in mind, like I said, I only wanted the fucking game. I didn't want any of this bullshit. Now, my best friend, she went ahead and brought the Digital Deluxe Edition, which came with everything I said before, plus digital soundtrack, a set of 6 PSN avatars, a PS4 dynamic theme, and a digital mini art book. That was it. And for that, it was the atrocious money of $89.99.
Oof.
From but that's... Not that this gives it a bit of value, but it was online. So, of course, with online, if you pay for it on the PSN store, you download it or preload it, and then, you can play it from midnight or whatever. So, they always add like an extra £10 onto digital editions. But anyway, that's what it was. And I could not get it in my head why she was paying that money when all she was going to do was just bloody play the game.
I don't even get the point of these pre-order bonuses that you've listed. I might get something like, okay, here's a theme for your console. That might be an aesthetic
that one
thing.
I actually get.
But for example, increased ammo capacity.
Mm-hmm.
As in changing gameplay for an easier way, which is also part of the game.
Frank, I remember that game like it happened yesterday. I remember everything that happened in it. But for the love of God, I don't remember an ammo capacity ever coming in handy. I just played the game. Also, with The Last of Us, I'm conservative on ammo anyway, so what the fucking hell was that point? It's not like it was spawning more ammo in the game. Just gave me a bigger clip. That was it. And then it was a crafting manual as well.
So, that's the type of things, upgrades that you could get like in the game anyway. It's like kind of stupid at that point. I wanted to touch on something else as well, like about like I said, when I did have like pre-orders, when it was like a physical thing, I do have the story that what happened with Resident Evil 3 Remake. It was kind of annoying, because there I went to the store, and I tried to pre-order the game before it was even pre-orderable, so I was like, yeah, just get me the regular edition, and if there is like a special edition with a statue, that type of shit, then you can change it to that one. So I called on the day when it was gonna be like when it was gonna come on the store. So I called them, and I'm like, yeah, how what about that? And it's like, yeah, no, we only have the regular edition, and the special edition is only orderable through the online store. And I'm like, what is this bullshit? And then by the time I got to check the online store, it was fucking gone. So I couldn't get it then. That was kind of annoying as well. Like when it's just like, that's just like I think that's like a distribution type of thing.
Yeah, that's a distribution thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that thing is easily like solvable by just having people pre-order more in advance with that type of shit, and then make sure that you just have enough.
I don't know what the hell, what kind of practice that was. But also, you know what's weird? I've only heard bad collector's edition, pickups or orders only in Europe. I don't hear any problems in the US. Apparently for them it all fucking works handy dandy. So
they still get those ugly plastic bags from Fallout and those moldy helmets.
Oh well, that's
Just get them earlier.
Oh god! If viewer, listener, even if you've not watched the Internet Historian's video on the Fallout 76 history, it's the best 15 minutes of your life.
Or just every time Jim Sterling had to do a video about Fallout
76, they talk about bugs and then they go to the pre-order. Oh my god! I'd watch that video again in a heartbeat. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, now we moved into the territory of stuff that has to do with money, so let's get back into the microtransactions as well, because we've kind of touched on them. They're kind of already there, aren't they? Pre-order bonuses are pretty similar, right?
If they're digital only. Here's my question to start off this particular topic.
I sense controversy.
No. When was the first time you noticed a microtransaction in a game? When you were like, what's this? So yours was Overwatch.
Yeah.
Brown, what was yours?
That's fairly recent then.
I was going to say, because that's why I wanted to know if you started noticing, because you...
But I'm not representative of this. I mostly play single-player games that I just pay for and play the story, so I'm not really in that target group.
So Brown,
It had to definitely be somewhere after I met you guys, because before that I only played single-player games, or mainly couch co-op games with my brother. Those type of games were the most things that I played. So microtransactions weren't really a thing in that. DLC existed.
Yes.
But back then DLC was basically like a good surprise, because most of the times the DLC wasn't even really announced. And it was like, oh, this game exists. And then you're like a few months later like, yeah, there's going to be DLC for the game.
See, I've got no problem with DLC. But again, with DLC, in my head,
if it's good.
In my head, DLC is like, here's an extra couple of storylines for you for an extra 10 quid. I'm like, okay, cool. That's fun. I mean, I don't know why that wasn't in the base game, but, that's fine with me. It's more game.
That's what it is, right? It used to be hardly any money, and it used to be substantial, like, chunk of gameplay that you got. That's how what DLC used to be.
An addition.
Now, with these microtransactions, you get, like, the minimal type of thing for a lot of money. Like you said, 10 quid, for example, would have been like an entire DLC, like a few side missions, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
For example, in like Fallout 3, you got like an entire like extension of the story after the game.
That's what I mean.
Through the DLC that they had. Whereas now, you can buy like a skin for a character for like 20 fucking quid instead.
Exactly.
Which is like the double of that.
And that's exactly what I was thinking. Fallout 4, I added a complete the Far Harbor. That was like 10 quid, and that was an additional 30 to 40 hours of gameplay, because it added a whole extra portion of the map with character, with story, with building elements. It was a really good bit of DLC. But then you get, I'm trying to think of a shit DLC.
Extra story missions in Spider-Man.
Yeah. I mean, I paid for the season.
They were very short, yeah.
It's just the first thing. It's not the worst, but the first thing I could think of. But it actually made me realize something very interesting. Because we just already touched upon the point that good DLCs are additions, not something that was taken out of the game.
Sorry to interject.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, no, my question was, do you count DLC as a microtransaction? No.
Kind of depends.
But maybe if I can get back to the point of what a good DLC.
There's probably like a gray area where a DLC could be close to a microtransaction and could be counted as one. Yeah. But like most DLCs would be an addition actually. Yeah. Because there's still DLC that is actually an addition to a game. It's not like that form of DLC has died off.
Yeah. I was thinking like a good DLC is something that adds to the game, but if it were in the real game by itself already, it wouldn't necessarily need to be here. For example, one of my all-time favorite examples of this is Blood and Wine for The Witcher 3, which, let's be real, if this was part of the core game, you would finish the core game and then have this completely separate story campaign attached to it. If you just wanted to get through the game, that's not something you would really want. It's like, oh yeah, the credits roll and hey, here's another 30 hours. It's really aimed at the people who already enjoyed the game and wanted more of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in Fallout 3, it's also kind of a weird one, because if you finish the game, you basically died and you couldn't continue the game. If you got the DLC, then you basically survived and you could roam the map again after that. So this kind of like, was that really the plan? Was it just like you finished the game, you died, that's the type of thing? And did they then eventually be like, maybe we want to give the people a chance to get back into the map, and then they made the DLC? Or was it just like, yeah, we'll just have the people die and then we'll make this DLC so people will buy it? I mean,
that's really
depending on that.
You can
the line is kind of blurred.
If you really always take a look at what are being sold, both as core product and later downloadable content, be that microtransaction or DLC as a bigger thing, you always can really tell that if it's something that was actually added later as an actual afterthought that adds value, or if it's something that has been hacked out of the main game. Actually, there's a Ben Crawshaw really put a good way by comparing it to movies. They don't do that in cinemas, right? You don't go watch a movie and be like, hey, can everybody with a silver ticket exit the room for 10 minutes so the gold people can, watch 10 more minutes of filler content?
Yeah, well, my example of that was the first EA Battlefront game, which the game was there, and then they added Bespin, Cloud City, and then they added the Death Star. But unless you paid for the season pass nor bought that specific DLC, you just could not access that lobby, you could not access that online multiplayer, and none of the new weapons or anything was there for you. And I've never, ever got that, because it really was like, they had all that content, and when all the DLC came together, I mean, yeah, I bought it all, put my hands up and I did, but then the game became like a game, but just the base, it's empty compared to like, what the hell is to let you say weird. It's exactly the same.
And
to be fair, that was also that's even bad for them, because that's kind of bad marketing as well, because you want to show off your stuff and you want people to basically have some access to it, but not really. Like, so let's say that you could go into the lobby and could play the games, but you couldn't have those guns, or you couldn't choose that map yourself. Then people will be like,
there was never any trial period.
I really want
it was
that.
always locked off. Always.
I mean, that's kind of, but still, that's kind of the same thing, right? You can see that there is a lobby with the Death Star, with Bespin. They dangle it in front of your face, and that's the whole point of business strategy for something like microtransactions. Hey, you could get it for just 99 cents and another 99 cents.
Yeah, but now they've become more devious with that, because that was just like, you can see it, but now they also give you a taste of it. So it's like,
yeah.
And then you come back for more. If you just see it, you may be like, maybe you could still...
EA is behaving like a shady drug empire.
Yeah. Want some drugs? Try my drugs. They're not addictive.
They give you the clean cocaine first to later give you the stuff that's being stretched with flour and done.
And the thing that annoys me is now companies are like, oh, all this additional after content, it's free. So you're just supporting your game. You're just continuously supporting your game. Because just to let you know, everyone, I paid for No Man's Sky once. Yeah, it was a shit game at the beginning, but I paid for it once, and now here we are. And it's a game, and now it's a big game, and now fucking holy shit, I can't finish it. It's too big of a game.
I hardly paid for it because it was a huge discount. And now, Perry has enjoyed the game. It's not for me.
I also hardly paid for it.
But I'm trying to think of a game that always has DLC.
FIFA.
I mean, every Fallout has DLC, but most of the time that's good, so I can't really complain about that.
I can't think of a game that's still getting DLC.
I mean, FIFA has been doing DLC for 15 years.
Oh! Elder Scrolls Online.
Every
That still
FIFA
gets
is DLC at the price of a new game.
It really is. That's what it is.
That's actually, yeah.
But so, talking on microtransactions, let's bring up the topic of loot boxes.
Ooh.
That you mean surprise mechanics?
There's two types of loot boxes. And it kind of depends on the games. Because some of them... Well, there's actually like also an in-between those two, but for example, what was it like in Injustice, for example? Injustice 2 had a lot of like loot boxes you can just earn in-game, and you can easily get them, and you can easily get a lot, so you didn't really need to buy them. I mean, they were still basically dangling in front of you and giving it to you, so there would still be people who would put money in that, but you did get them really frequently in that game. And if there wasn't an option to then also buy them, that would just be the perfect way to get loot boxes. You just earn them through playing the game. That would be how it should be. But then you also have the loot boxes where you get jack shit. Like, that's even a problem in Apex. You hardly get shit there, right? The loot boxes like every level, and then like eventually every 2 levels. But like, because you're a higher level, you level up slower, and then it's like 2 levels takes a while at that point. So it's like, yeah, this doesn't really. I mean, this just makes no sense. And it just makes it so that people want to buy loot boxes, I suppose. Because you just give them just not enough to satisfy them, but just enough to basically pique their curiosity. And those are the bad type of loot boxes. Those are the bad types. Then you have the in-between. I think Mortal Kombat 11 has like an in-between, because you can get like a lot of like currency in the game, and then get that through like that type of like weird puzzle mode where you walk around and just open chests. That one. You can get fairly a lot of stuff out of that, but then you also burn through your money that you get quite quickly, and then you could potentially buy some more, which is like an in-between type of thing. So there's definitely like a bad way of doing it and a good way of doing it. Probably the bad way of doing it, that we think is the bad way, is probably the one that they prefer because it makes them the most money.
It does,
let's be honest.
Unfortunately, yeah. That's what I was referring to a few, 20 minutes back. There is always a market for this kind of thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist. Otherwise, they wouldn't be successful with it. And, I mean, this topic has been touched upon many times before, but I think there's way too little legislation on that.
Yeah.
Mm.
If you can give them free reign, of course they're gonna do it.
Ooh, this reminds me of something me and Perry discovered, which is even worse. So, in Apex, well, I can't buy any loot boxes, obviously, because I'm in Belgium, and I have a Belgian account as well. So if I would want to buy loot boxes, it's just impossible. There is, however, a guarantee that you could get certain things that you can get, and there's like legendaries every now and then. So it's more similar to Pokemon cards than some of these, or like Magic the Gathering and that type of shit than like a lot of other loot boxes where it's just like super random. You do like guaranteed legendaries after so many and that type of stuff. Which brings me to the other example. We figured out that when PUBG, fucking shitty game that looks like it came out in 2001, actually has loot boxes in them that I could buy from Belgium. I didn't buy any of them. I did buy some with like the in-game currency or some shit. Oh. But I could get currency, even though I never did it. But with that currency, you could buy those boxes. What's worse than the Apex thing is there's no guarantee of what you get. There is a list of items that you could get in it. So that's probably how they potentially got around it. But you can get doubles. And if you get doubles, if you bought like a box for like 300 coins or something, and you sell that item, you sell that double at 6 coins. So you get no return on what you actually sold at that point.
Oh,
so that's just really horrible practice.
I mean, it's kind of obvious. If loot boxes were physical items, they would be a pyramid scheme. That's the entire business model.
Yeah, it
those
would
are
be allowed.
illegal for a reason.
That's like if I would be like, let's say like I open a store, a clothing store, and I don't buy. You can't see the clothes, but they're in like a box. It's like, hey, you want to buy a new pair of pants? Maybe you'll get a shirt. I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be a hoodie. Here, try it. Just pay me like 200 euros, and you can open this. And then they open it, and there's like a pair of pants in there that's like 2 sizes too small, and the person's like, yeah, I can't do anything with this. Do you want to take it back? Yeah. Here's 6 euros. But I paid 200 for it. Yeah, but now it's 6. Want to buy a new one? Maybe this is your size.
I just realized
the surprise is value.
I just realized if GameStop took all of the covers out of the boxes, they would have exactly that business model.
Lol. Just like all of the covers. Buy a game. just switch up the covers.
Game.
Oh my god. Oh no, that doesn't work because the games aren't in the things. Otherwise, you could have just switched up like the games, the discs inside. Just somebody comes like, yeah, I want to buy a game, and then they go back. It's like,
oh god,
I'm going to play What Remains of Edith Finch, and then they open it up like, Marvel's Avengers. They just throw it away.
That's another Christmas successfully ruined. Then again, if you get your kids What Remains of Edith Finch for Christmas, they're just gonna get depression.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much.
They learn a life lesson,
but for a good reason. Not for the Marvel Avengers kind of depression.
For getting Marvel's Avengers. That was another one of those. That's another hype story, I suppose.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
we did set our boundaries, and it's always the same situation. I never say I think a game's gonna be good or bad. I say if the game turns out this way, then it's probably gonna be good if it's well done. For example, Fallout 76, I thought like if it's Fallout 4, but you can play it on like a private server with your friends, and you can build a base together and that type of shit. Good game.
They were branding it like that.
Same thing with Marvel's Avengers. If it's going to be Spider-Man, but instead of just Spider-Man, you play with the different Avengers in an open map, then it's a good game. But we didn't get that, so it was a shit game.
I thought you guys were just talking about the movie.
No.
For a second. I was like, why? Well, okay, interesting. This is quite an argument, but okay, cool.
I mean, I would almost argue that it's, again, false advertisement, because for context, we three with a few other people went to Gamescom to do our coverage of that, and we also covered.
Did? Oh my god, I didn't.
Yeah, 2019, ancient ages, but
the last Gamescom for the time being, because there was no 2020 because of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was all for the players. But we also covered Marvel's Avengers there. And they did not show us the whole decrepit live service type that the game eventually turned out to be. They showed us the exciting parts, the action scenes with, the classic Marvel's heroes and villains, which are in the game, but are not the core part. Again, it's this whole bait and switch kind of scenario that applies to almost all monetary processes in the gaming world right now.
I felt there was something that was said somewhere. Was it at E3? Was it the person that gave the explanation with the game? Something gave me the impression that this was going to be an open world type of game where it's like basically like with the Spider-Man thing where you can go through the missions basically, through that type of stuff. But this is just like some fucking shit that you go through like a story and you can play online and you can repeat missions to grind for shit, which is just basically another version of like the Ultimate Alliance, but like with a different control scheme basically, that type of shit. So it wasn't really what I expected out of it. So yeah,
it's really just fuel for the hype train.
Yeah,
truly.
So false advertisements, yeah, that's definitely also one of them. One of the things that we can put on the list, on the naughty list of the games industry. Yeah.
One of the many reasons why the entirety of the video games industry is going to, in hypothetical 10th circle of Dante's hell.
That's definitely one of the things. But yeah, like we said, I think we touched it off on the microtransactions as well. I don't think there's anything more there's something more egregious than what we touched on, the pay-to-win aspect. We didn't really touch on that because it's not really a thing in like a lot of the more the AAA sphere of games. It's more in like the games that are really just made for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably those types of games that are specifically made. That's more like a phone game type of thing where it's like a pay-to-win situation.
Hunters.
Where those games kind of work like they give you a lot of stuff in the beginning, I think, from what I've read. Like, I don't play mobile games, so I read up that one of the things that they do is they give you a lot of stuff in the beginning. So they make you kind of overpowered in the beginning, and you get some stuff, and you get like a bonus here, and then, you need to pay normally like 200 euros for this, but here's a lot of coins that you can use. And then you're really good at this because, well, they make you overpowered. And after a while, you just run into, like, opponents that are just so much... They match you up with people who spend more money, I think. And they have, like, better equipment and they fuck you up. And then they prompt you with, like, oh, you saw this? Hey, here it is. Here is this good character. This is the character that just beat you. You can buy it as well. But it costs you 40 euros. Do you want to buy it? And that type of shit keeps happening. And if you do buy that... You're like, for 2 days, maybe you can play the game and you're like, I'm back to winning. And then it's like, oh shit, I'm crushed again. And they want to suck like an entire wage's worth of like money out of you before the month's even over.
It's very much just the whole psychological attack aspect of it. After all, especially mobile video games that are aimed to do that are products that are built to keep you going and keep you spending, and
they should be
in many cases, yes. But then again, this is also something we see with pretty much any digital product that aims at you spending something. You listening to this can't see this right now, but I'm holding up a book right now to Bron McGriff, which is called Hooked, which is basically just about this whole thing, how you build a product that keeps you in this loop of always engaging with it more. And the interesting part of it is that technology, as we know, it actually makes this easier because that's just analytics. YouTube does the same thing. Instagram does the same thing. You keep seeing these patterns, and according to these patterns, you can as Bob mentioned, match you up with stronger opponents or show you better. Hey, you should probably spend right now. Because that's the most likely pathway will to succeed. And we see this not only in video games, we see this in pretty much any digital product.
But to be fair, if games are marketed more towards like the aspect of competition to some degree, and in that case, if it's actually pay to win, that's definitely something that should be illegal at that point, because what you're doing is you're purposefully matching people up, not with people who are similar in abilities, which what skill-based matchmaking could do in like games where it's like, oh, these people are equally good. Let's put them together in a match, and that's a fair match. And then you have like this learning curve where you sometimes have to go up against people who are slightly better than you, but that's just the amount, because you can't learn anything from going up against someone who's like infinitely better than you. That doesn't teach you anything. Like a boxing match with Mike Tyson as a beginning boxer is not going to teach you anything. It's just going to teach you how to lick the fucking ring while you collect your eyes or something, whatever. You just try to get back up from your head being caved in or whatever. That doesn't really teach you anything. You'd have to go against people who are slightly better than you, and once you get better, you can go against people who are slightly better than them, and that's how you progress. That's actually how it works in education as well. If you're teaching someone a new concept, like let's say you're a maths teacher. Nobody, like a lot of people wouldn't want to be a maths teacher, so this is a bad example maybe.
Or a teacher.
But I'll just say it. Or a teacher, because that's an underpaid job. But let's just continue with that. Let's say that you give someone a new thing to learn. You would have to start with finding, if you want to basically get people like to be optimal and be the best they can be, you'd have to find like, where's the point where it gets almost too hard for them? And that's the optimal difficulty for like some type of practice runs. And then you can see like, okay, how can I make this better? And then eventually you could go to stuff that's like increasingly harder within like the same type of subject material, which goes for everything, which goes like for type of like philosophy and psychology stuff and that type of stuff, and for like history, everything that you want to learn, you would have to find like, where is my edge and how do I. And if you slightly go over that, you could be better. You could learn how to be better with that. Same for games, for like shooters, for example. If you go up against people who you barely just lost against, like those encounters are going to make you better over time. But somebody who just completely wipes you and you had no chance, that's not going to teach you anything.
And the video games industry takes another step in that direction. They not only make it unfair for you to win or lose, they give you the solutions to your math homework for 99 cents a piece. Do continue with that.
I was done with the maths analogy though, because I don't want to scare
that's the one I was looking for. Goddamn. Yeah.
No, but that's the thing. When it comes to that part of it, in even like if it's in a shooter game, if someone's immensely better, they could still deal with like some shittier equipment and still fuck someone up. Like someone who's like fully paid to win and they just started this game and they just bought everything and they have like amazingly better guns and shit. They could still potentially be wiped out by someone who's like has no good equipment but is just so fucking good at the game. But where it becomes really unfair is, just think about a game that is turn-based, where you hardly do much, where you hardly do anything, for example. Let's just say that it just mostly depends on just characters and their power levels and shit. I mean, at that type of game, you can't win. You can't win if you don't spend the right amount of money and get the right amount of things. So that's where it becomes really extremely unfair. I'm not saying that it's not unfair in a shooter, but it also depends on the genre of game, where it just becomes increasingly unfair the more like luck gets involved, basically, or like numbers get involved rather than actual skill. So there's definitely
the whole thing they leech up upon. Also, can we just sidetrack for a second? What is up with those incredibly devious video game advertisements of somebody of somebody playing a video game showing you how cool the game is by spending stuff on it. Have you guys seen that?
Example me. I have no idea what you mean.
There's a... I've seen them popping up on YouTube, like people playing, I don't know, fucking Raid Shadow Legends, right? Bad example, because me, but...
I was gonna say.
But that kind of thing, like, oh yeah, now we found the great sword of kill yourself, and now we're gonna completely decimate these people because this game's so cool, you should totally download and pay for it. Who's that marketing to? I am genuinely confused by that.
I just bought the great dildo sword of Exodore, and now I can smash everyone with my huge dildo. Yeah, that's
lovely.
Just something Saints Row.
I don't really know, but I see what you mean. There's like sometimes in those advertisements you do see people like engage with microtransactions that are like, what? How is this? How are you advertising the game like that?
You're selling your monetary compensation as a feature. What?
Now I just imagine a guy that's like, you see his face and it's like, and then it zooms out, and instead of his dick being like his balls being drained, you see like his wallet, like money's been taken out of it, and it's like, oh yeah, take my money. Oh.
I mean, you're catching on something good. It's like advertising a brothel by showing them the cash register.
Lovely.
The most erotic part.
Just like
at least for EA it is.
Well, yeah.
Just instead of like showing the prostitute, you just like there's a window where you can see the guy that was in there paying for the services.
Yeah, they're focusing on the price list.
Like there's like a price list. There's a huge price list behind him, and there's like an old man that takes the cash from him because otherwise it gets too sexual. But you can't see the prostitutes. You just see the guy, the huge like list of like the price list, and the guy paying and then walking out.
That's like advertising Caesar's Palace by showing a guy losing at the slot machine. Like, sorry, bit of a derail track there, but that was just confusing to me.
See, what is that? I wonder if that really touches on like something, on like a male gender power stereotype as well to some degree, because it's like, I am the man, I am the provider, because it's never really women in that situation as well. Like, obviously women do fall for that as well, microtransactions. That does happen. But like, there is this type of thing, there is a type of sexualization of the fact that you have cash, like in disposable income. So I wonder if that actually plays into that for some degree, because they're like, oh, I can just throw my money away on something as frivolous as a stupid video game. That means that I have so much disposable cash that I don't give a shit, which means that I'm rich, which means that I'm successful. Is that something that people get from that, maybe, to some degree?
I'm not sure, but I mean, I'm also not sure about the whole generalization of it. I'm not sure if there are any official statistics even on that, but you're all right. Whenever we see like this case of like somebody ruining their life because of microtransactions, so far I've only ever seen male people do that.
I mean, there is still the stupid... There is still the stupid... There's still the stupid situations of like men that get like, you know, the man that can't find jobs sometimes, and they're sometimes married to like a very successful woman. There's still people who break up with that woman because like, she's demasculinizing me because I can't fucking, she's taking away my masculinity because I can't be the provider here. She has too much money and I can't make anything. I mean, that type of shit. So that still happens. So that does factor into relationships. So I wouldn't really be all that confused if it even like counts into that type of like spending and shit. So I don't know.
I mean, if my partner would be making millions per second, I would be a stay-at-home person. I would wear a maid outfit.
I mean, Perry doesn't do jack shit now. If she was
I'm
rich,
sure
then I would
you
probably
will.
also not do jack shit instead of her. I would be a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home like husband if
I want to see both of you in a French cleaner's outfit right now.
Be careful what you wish for.
Disagree.
Do I need to wear
exactly
something
what I'm looking
underneath,
for.
Griff? Or just...
I've seen you both in compromising positions. It does not matter. Put it on.
Do I shave my ass before, or just?
I do not care.
I want to see a very hairy maid.
Oh no.
Mate for you.
Braid, if you will.
Oh my god, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna just start up a company where it's very hairy men. They don't wear any clothes underneath their aprons, and they just go clean for people. And it's gonna be called Made for You. That's the
no.
That's good shit. It's good shit.
It's gonna make millions.
But I feel like I'd like to bring a bit of a rounded edge to all this negativity. That being said, the very thing that we love is the reason that we are all here together.
Is he still talking about the mate part?
No. But now I think about it, we'll come back to that again in 2 seconds. But let's paint a picture here, people. No, but we say the gaming community is this and that, and there are definitely things wrong with how it's structured. But this very thing that we all love is the reason that we are all still friends 5 years on from meeting each other for one game of Gmod. So like, we talk about this negativity, but there is good that comes out of it. I'm just trying to be positive because it's 2021.
To be 100% fair about that as well, if you take
I thought Brown was about to say yes, Griff, and just to let you know, I hate you. I've hated you all these years. I want you to go away now.
Oh, I'm still stuck on the we are friends part. Where the fuck did you get that impression?
No comment. Let's get back to what we talked about. Okay? I'm just gonna say, the fact that we are talking about the things we hate about video games means that we have an opinion about video games, and mostly have an opinion on something you care about. Since you care about something, there's going to be aspects that disappoint you. It's not really a hate, it's more of like a disappointed. It's like how your dad isn't necessarily always angry at you, but is disappointed when you do something wrong. That type of shit. You know?
How do you know my life? Go away.
Why am I imagining Todd Howard as my dad?
I wonder if Todd Howard's dad's disappointed in him most.
You mean your HR manager?
Oh yeah. You know, Todd Howard as your HR manager just sounds like an HR disaster to me. But that's
talking about HR managers. You know which company I wouldn't want to be an HR manager at? Ubisoft. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. What were we saying on your stream about surprise hugs?
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to say something about the molesters at Ubisoft because I was streaming on Team Trollex. So Perry said that I couldn't say the M word, molesters. So we said because of surprise mechanics. We said surprise huggers. And surprise hugs at Ubisoft.
It's a very nice way.
We don't call them molesters, we call them surprise huggers.
I mean,
just imagine that EA representative in front of court.
That's actually I
swear it's not what it looks like.
I mean, that's a thing that you can touch on that isn't really like
touch on.
That's not really connected with the gaming community or the gaming. What was I gonna say? Just as gaming as
the gaming space.
Yeah,
basically.
It's not really connected to the entire gaming space because it exists, but like outside of that. And I think every time you have like a hierarchy somewhere, there is people who abuse it and abuse that to gain sexual favors and that type of stuff, or just
we had the same situation.
I was trying to round this off being happy, but now you're just talking about fucking surprise huggers and you're making so much worse.
Okay, but now
sounds like a Half-Life enemy.
Like I said, we touched a lot on the actual bigger things in the industry. Like I said, there's a lot of bad. We have encountered a lot of bad stuff there, but like I want to take it a bit more personal as well. Like the things there must be things that we really love about video games. Like I said, that basically the duality, things that we really love about video games or types of video games that we really love. But that always comes with something that's more of a pet peeve that you personally have. Like I'd want to ask the question to the both of you. What are some of the things that you find that really satisfy you in video games? And what are some of the downsides to those? Or some of the things that basically are basically make you dislike the same concept to some degree, or could ruin the same concept, if you know what I'm saying.
Blimey.
Maybe it's better if I give an example.
Yeah,
For example,
yes,
I really, really like interpersonal relationship in games. For example, if it's like in a Persona where you can choose to spend time with people, and therefore like you learn more about their backstory and that type of stuff. and then basically that intertwines with your own story, and that basically forms like a new type of side story apart from the main story of the game, but it does basically bring the main story forward. It's like I said, why my number one game that I played this year was also Fire Emblem Three Houses, because of that interpersonal, and then the characters themselves. It wasn't just you, but it was also the characters that you didn't play that could basically get better, even get together romantically eventually at the end. So yeah, that type of stuff. I find that's interesting in games, especially if you have some hand in it. So what also bothers me is if there's like very limited options. So either if there's like a type of romance situation, but there's like, let's say that your character is a female or something, or identifies as female, and you're gonna play the game, and you say like, okay, I want my character to be a lesbian, or you say I want my character to be straight, and you play it that way, and eventually you see that there's only one lesbian option and only one straight option, or there's like two straight options and only one lesbian option. Like, that type of shit kind of annoys me as well. That's one of the things that I do find very annoying in games, where you have like, they give you an option, but it's so limited that there's hardly really an option. You can't really call it an option. And I feel like to some degree, I mean, in Persona you had the downside that your character had to full on be straight because you only had the girls to pick from. That being said, if you were going to play the character, like if you had to play the character straight, there were a lot of options at least. So that was something.
Oh, I would have dated Sojiro.
What?
I would have dated Sojiro, hands down.
Kind of sounds funny. Here, Futaba, I'd like you to meet your new dad. It's me.
Hey, I'm your stepdad.
That's very confusing. Yeah, but that's one of my pet peeves in games, because I do like when there's a certain type of options, but when they make them very limited, that just feels like wasted potential.
I feel like there's often this illusion of options, of saying, yeah, this is totally something you can do in our game, but in the end, it's really still very streamlined. And I think, in a way, that's kind of what you meant. I was actually reminded of, you remember, what was that video game called by Nintendo, where you have like this island full of your Miis?
Me.
You're talking about
Tomodachi Life, yeah.
Oh, I love Tomodachi Life.
Well, you say you love Tomodachi Life, but there was a very interesting controversy around that one.
Really?
Yes. So, you populate that game by characters that you make yourself, likely based on people you know, right? Yeah. Still, there was this controversy that you could only have couples in the game if they were male and female.
Oh.
But if you populate the game with people that actually really exist, then it basically seems to say, hey, yeah, you can't really do that, even though they do that in real life.
Sorry, Griff, you can't be gay in my island.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
that's fine with me.
Welcome to Homophobia Island.
It's weird because they don't even use terms like boyfriend, girlfriend. They use significant other.
So they use a gender-neutral term, and then...
Yeah, it's like, what was the point of that? It's like, might as well just call them fuck buddies at that point. Which is kind of off topic, but that's just something I was reminded of with what Bram was saying. Like this illusion of a decision, which also applies to various other parts in video games. But that's just something I was reminded of.
I mean, it can be applied well, because like I said, there's one thing that I said, like, the illusion of choice. I feel like Naughty Dog does that well with like their open levels, kinda, because when you play like Uncharted and The Last of Us, the levels feel kind of open because you can go about through a lot of sections like on 3 or 4 different ways, and that feels like you have endless options. I feel like that's a good way to utilize like the illusion of options, because if there's more than 3 options, a lot of times that looks endless to people. But 2 options, I mean, that seems fairly basic. So,
I mean, Telltale built their entire business around it.
True.
Yeah, even though they always end up on the same place, right? I don't
exactly.
Doesn't really do anything like your choices, because I mean, That's another thing that's kind of funny. That really didn't need to be episodic, right? Because then if it wasn't episodic, then they could have just planned around like all the changes and just made from beginning to end a different game. Like where it could end differently depending on your choices. But now it's basically...
The David Cage principle.
Yeah, kind of. Well...
If it were done competently.
Or those Man of Medan style games. What is it, the new one called? Little Hope or some shit?
Little Hope, yeah. And I have little hope for the rest of the series.
Yeah, isn't this...
I mean, you had hope for the series.
Aren't these games just always about like it's an illusion, this was a dream anyway, or just like it happened in someone's head? Is that always what is Man of Medan stuff?
That's like the laziest writing you could possibly
I think that's how they all end, though.
Really?
Yeah. I think that's how Man of Medan ended. I think that's how Little Hope ends. I think that's how they're all gonna end. Is that why it takes place in the psychiatrist's office, or it looks like that?
Oh, that could be.
It's just like
that would be the lamest twist ever.
It's just like all the story. It's just like all things that this one guy told him. Just like this one guy that was insane. Just told him all this. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
That illusion of choice is kind of annoying as well when you have like the story, but it doesn't really go anywhere, and it doesn't matter what you choose.
Yeah, I mean, it can work if it's well concealed. You've touched on something like The Last of Us and Uncharted, with Naughty Dog being, at least on a gameplay level, somewhat masters of their craft.
Yeah, it can be utilized well. Like, there's also ups and downsides to a lot, but like, maybe I should also ask the question a bit differently, because I know there's specific things about. I know specific things about preferences about the both of you when it comes to games. For example, I know that Griff also likes to relax and play some like sandboxy, buildy type games where you can, for example, build your own zoo or a theme park or that type of stuff.
He said my trigger. I'm now seizing on the floor.
When it comes to those type of games,
is
there something specific about those games that really annoys you?
Oh god.
You're trying to make him critique one of his all-time favorites. This is going to be tough.
Why would you do that?
But it's a good question.
I don't know. Ask me again in like 3 weeks. I need to think about that.
Jesus. Griff is processing so slowly, he still runs on floppy disk.
Honestly. I don't know. Ask me again in a minute.
Maybe I can barge in instead with one of my personal pet peeves.
Yeah?
And it's a bit hard to put into like a single sentence. It's about the fragility of gameplay loops. Now let me qualify that a little bit.
Yeah, a gameplay loop could differ from game to game, so they would be fragile in different ways. So,
well, I'm thinking of I'm going through my favorite games of recent years, and I realized some of them have really strong gameplay loops, like something you keep doing in that game, the core part of the game, while some of them do not have something like that.
For example, getting angry on your cat that she's telling you to go to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely, a little bastard. But that is a good example of a gameplay loop. Coming back to Persona 5, the day in, day out principle of having a few set actions you can take every day, with, of course, slight variations, but in the end, this calendar principle.
Yeah, and
really good gameplay loop, really solid game. But then I'm thinking something like, let's say, I remember playing Killzone a few years back. Go to the place, shoot the thing. Go to the place, shoot the thing. Gameplay loop, but somehow boring.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been like the second game or something, because I only or after that, because I only think the first games were just like story games. Like you didn't really go to places. You just had to get from one place to another or something, and you just could like engage enemies in between. So it was like more of like a story game. That's how I perceive it.
Maybe it was the
like
story that didn't click for me. I do believe it was Killzone 2.
Could be.
But I mean, we could broaden this to any kind of modern shooter.
Like the
thing.
mission-based type of
Let's take
shit, where you're like,
Exactly.
welcome back to headquarters, Agent Ballsack. We're gonna send you back. Now we're gonna send you to Guatemala to shoot some people in the face. Oh, fun.
That's usually it's always gonna be Koreans or
What's
Russians.
the name of that game? I want to play that.
Rough action.
Call of Duty.
But I realized that a lot of developers seem to get kind of hung up on that and keep doing the things that are basically proven, and that makes for a lack of innovation. Some of my favorite games in recent years were gameplay loops that I've never seen before. The calendar system of Persona 5, it's gonna sound stupid as hell, but the filling out of your diary in the Return of the Obra Dinn. You go around this ship, you put names into a diary. That's it. And it was one of the most engaging pieces of artwork I've ever played.
Yeah, I can get what you mean.
By being new.
You mean something like a radio tower or something, and
No.
in a Far Cry game.
So don't get me started on towers.
I mean, you know that radio towers are just.
Towers? I heard a Ubisoft dev just get an erection.
I mean, radio towers are completely different
That's
from
enough
other
radio
types of
towers
towers that
also
you can
coming
climb
up.
in other
Yeah.
games. Oh shit!
It's
Wait.
See, but example of towers. Even there, a little bit of innovation can do wonders. You have Ubisoft, the tower de jour, right? Going, okay, yeah, let's take this map and sprinkle it with icons. And you see the icons if you go to a tower. That has been proven over the last 2 centuries.
Yeah, I mean,
almost.
I think what they do to set those things up on the map, I think they feed someone like sparkles, like in all sides of colors, and then they put the game up down on the floor, and then the guy, they give him a laxative, and then it's like, and where all the colors go, every color is just a new thing. Like, that's an enemy camp, that's going to be a radio tower, and I think that's how they make Far Cry games, actually.
They ordered they ordered a glitter bomb to one of the map designers once, and that decided the next 10 years of that poor fuck's life.
Shit.
But what I was getting at, innovation. Remember Breath of the Wild? That had towers, that had icons on a map, but a simple change of getting up the tower and then actually looking where something is made so much of a difference. Such a slight change, yet so much innovation coming off of it. And
Yeah,
that's
that was
what
kind
I'm
of
really
the
missing.
Side of
right now.
that. The flip side of that, I hate that. Just give me the icons, and then I'm gonna go to them, and then I'm gonna have fun. I'm a lazy gamer.
You know, it was Ubisoft though, but in that
Saying it's not a good thing.
in that Phoenix Rising game, like the Immortals game, there was like
yeah,
they also have
that's just Breath of the
similar.
Wild with Greek gods on it.
But I mean, they have some things that are better than Breath of the Wild. For example, the weapons don't break, which I hated in fucking Breath of the Wild.
I modded
know
that
a
out
lot
of
of
my
people-
Breath of the Wild.
Fucking hell.
Oh god, it's the most. That's probably the reason I refuse to finish the game, because of the fucking weapon.
Yeah, you basically
Yeah,
you go
I
into
modded
like
it
a
out.
high level area and you get like very good gear, and then you go back and you go to a shit area and then your weapon breaks and you have to switch to a shit weapon that you just find there. What the fuck is that bullshit? Who the fuck came up with that? It was probably some idiot. But what I was gonna say is, in that game you also have like the radio tower type of system, but instead of like a radio tower where you can just climb it and you have to just like follow a preset like set of like, ooh, you have these skills to climb. There it is. Basically, you have the option to climb like you do in like Breath of the Wild, and eventually you run out of stamina and you would fall. So you basically would have to. It's like a statue of the god that you have to climb, and you have to look around and you can see like, okay, maybe I can rest up there, I can rest there, and then you have to basically climb and do that type of stuff, which is also already kind of more engaging because you have more options to do that. You could.
That's actually kind of like real climbing works.
Yeah, a bit more like that. So that already makes it better. And then you can kind of have the thing and it looks around and that type of stuff, and then icons appear. That's type of standard box situation bullshit. But like the climbing itself, at least, is somewhat more engaging in that situation.
Tiny bits of innovation. That's what I'm getting at. I'm really missing that with
And-
99% of the games that are being released.
And instead of jumping down into like a hail, like a fucking like ball of hail that just happens to be there, you basically have the glider, like something they also stole from obviously Breath of the Wild. But if you see like a thing where you want to go, you can basically start gliding in that direction with already having a high head start because you're on the statue, which is one of the highest things in the vicinity. So it gets you a nice nice head start to basically go somewhere. So that's already somewhat like even Ubisoft seems to innovate on their own bullshit that they've been doing for years.
I mean, about time.
Yeah, finally. Also, what does make this game, that game specifically, is a sense of humor. Because I like the fact that it's basically about, like, all the gods have kind of been defeated by this, like, titan. Apart from, like, Zeus is still there. And you have to kind of get the other gods back. But, like, Zeus is, like, a total buffoon. And he just basically stands like a Greek cab driver. And he's just basically there making jokes and narrating the entire story with Prometheus, because he's talking to Prometheus the entire time, because Prometheus is telling him the story about Phoenix, who is eventually gonna be the one to help him, I suppose, because I haven't finished the game, so I don't know where that's going. But Zeus just sounds like a total buffoon who doesn't understand what the fuck, like the consequences of his actions and shit. So as you go through the game, he's like...
Kind of sounds like Zeus.
He's kind of also like confronted with like shit like he did, like sent the boar to kill... what is his name again? Adonis, I think? Was it Adonis who was killed by the boar?
Yeah, I remember the story. Was it Adonis? Might have been.
So that type of shit. And yeah. There's also this entire story about like how apparently... what was it? Like about throwing like a pearl into the sea, and that's how Aphrodite was born, instead of actually the entire story. But then you hear like what actually happened. Like there was like this confusion about it, and then you hear like Prometheus is like whispering something to Zeus, and it's like, ah! So basically telling the story about how the testicles got chopped off and fell into the sea.
Oh no.
Mixed with the sea foam. Yeah. So I think it's basically, you have to kind of get something about mythology before some of the jokes land, but there's just a lot of jokes, and I think the humor is basically what sets this apart from Breath of the Wild. So it does have its own thing. And I do think that's a good thing. If you have a game that kind of is similar to another game, but it does have its own identity still, then at least you have that. If it didn't have that, then this was just a fucking soulless clone. So they did...
Yeah, exactly. Innovation, right? Innovation doesn't have to be gameplay aspect.
No,
it can be just storytelling, characters.
Yeah, here was just
aesthetics.
storytelling and humor, basically, that made this game kind of more enjoyable for me than Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild was a bit too open, in my opinion. There was a shitload of nothing a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's true. I absolutely agree, and many people criticized it for that. Except for, the Nintendo gatekeepers, we've already talked about.
I still want to finish it, because like the story and stuff and what you have to do and find, go to those things and do all those, and get like, I mean, I should probably just spoil it, like get all the machines working and that type of shit, what you needed to do there.
It's not really a spoiler. That's practically the gameplay loop.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting story, and to see that eventually unfold and try to get everything before you go to Ganon. That sounds like an interesting thing. But the game is just so expansive and so big, and there's a whole lot of nothing.
Perhaps too much innovation at once.
There's
absolutely.
Really spaces. I haven't really seen a game that has a big map that also has a load of nothing in it. Like most of the time, there's at least something interesting to look at. Like in Skyrim, sometimes you get like annoyed by, oh fuck, there's a mountain here. I have to try and get around this mountain to be where I needed to go. Mountains can be annoying in like open world games, but with like Breath of the Wild, there was like, oh, there's a mountain here. There's also nothing interesting to see, which compared to like Ghost of Tsushima, which looked amazing and had something interesting to look at everywhere you went. When you had to go around the mountain, you're like, yeah, I'll just stroll around, see what I can find, see what I can see while I go around this mountain, which is in my way.
Yeah, maybe you run into a side quest. Yeah. Maybe you'll find some interesting collectible, which isn't marked on a fucking glitter map.
Yeah.
That's and I mean we've kind of shit up on Ubisoft right now as like the whole meme of Ubisoft just as towers, but it's not like Ubisoft never innovated themselves.
Well, exactly.
I remember Assassin's Creed 3 being the pulse pounding document signing action, and then came Black Flag, which just put a fucking ocean into the game.
It was great.
And that's the thing I am missing. I've only really seen that with a few games, very few games in recent years.
Yeah, I feel like
that's my pet peeve.
For that, yeah, you mean like the fact that the gameplay loop is just you say like fragility, as in basically it's too easily broken, but you mean that actually it is too easily broken because it's a thing that you've seen before, and you just get bored of it.
Sorry, maybe I phrased it weirdly.
It's basically something you get bored of.
It's more of the same,
and it basically takes you out of the gameplay loop, and you're like, this isn't fun. I'm not gonna repeat this loop anymore. It's basically getting out of that.
Yeah. That's exactly why I'm loving Persona 5 so much, because it's something I've never seen before.
Fanboy.
Absolutely, and there I am standing behind that sentence.
As the gatekeeper.
Maybe that's also similar to
No,
why.
gatekeeping would be, this game isn't as good because it doesn't have calendar as Persona 5. Also, Makoto best girl.
Is that the one from the toxic fandom, Makoto?
It kind of has, actually, yeah.
It's funny you should say that because today my Makoto Funko arrived.
Oh. I'm gonna get lynched.
No, I just have like all the Funkos that came out, but they only had like the first 4 characters, and then they made Fox, who hasn't arrived yet. It's pre-ordered, but I'm still waiting for whenever the fuck they sent him, and then they had Makoto as like both were like special editions or something. But I ordered both of them, and now that's part of that. Now I'm still waiting for the hopefully like. Like Futaba and Haru or something. See if they also make those.
You know what I want a statue of?
What?
The dick-shaped Persona.
You mean Amara or something? What was it called?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a giant green dick with tentacles on a chariot.
Golden chariot, yeah. It's just funny. You also have
Griff is confused.
those little green
I'm
chodes.
lost. I'm... Can we just write the word confusion on my forehead?
Absolutely.
There's also personas shaped like the shodes, like the small but thick green ones. That's also hilarious. There's some dick-shaped stuff in there, yeah. And there's BDSM angels and stuff. So there's some weird personas.
Okie dokie.
Yep.
We really need to see
And
Griff.
it's great.
Anyway, we've moved so far away.
Right, Griff, your pet peeve.
God.
Is it BDSM angels?
It doesn't have to be from your favorite. Like, if you can't come up with anything apart from like those sandbox build games, then it could be something completely different.
Well,
Anything
I'm
dick
trying to
shaped.
think. Pet peeve. Just I don't.
What's the last thing that annoyed you in the game?
Well, that doesn't narrow it down.
Whoa.
I'm playing an online MMO. There's several things I don't like about it.
Fair enough.
The community for one. It's fucking bullshit. I don't know. I guess it's just because like there are a lot of things that will annoy me, but as a gamer, I don't want to. I mean, very much as probably as a younger man, he says at 22. Things would annoy me more, but the thing is, as someone who's been gaming now for a good portion of my life, I just ignore the things I don't like. So I guess there is probably an answer, but I don't want to think about the answer because I want to love the things that I love, and gaming is like the second thing I love most after breathing. So like there are probably pet peeves, but I couldn't give you one now because why focus on the negative? I mean, I know that's all we've done for the last 1.5 hours.
I mean,
but
this episode is the big rant, you know?
but also, fuck you with your bloody... It's a free update. It's a game. Just support it. Don't call it a free update. You're just helping us. You bloody... Ugh. There you go. That's
That
the
was
one. I don't
some
know.
build-up rage.
Yeah, there was some, we were talking about ranting, and then there was an actual legit rant that
It just bubbled
up
up.
out of nowhere.
Oof.
God damn it. I mean, there's...
I think we slowly ditched the Griff psychopath. Now he got the chance to vent. We're safe for another few weeks.
There's going to be a grift-shaped hole in the wall in a minute, and I'm just going to be
Yeah.
running out in the streets.
Like, the question is...
Naked, of course.
Not the first time.
Is it that Griff couldn't come up with anything, or is it just that there's too many things and it just doesn't want them all to just come out like in rapid fire?
Yeah, honestly, if we open the can of worms, I'm actually quite scared of what might come out. So yeah,
I mean, there's another one that we could say that's a pet peeve that could be annoying is maybe some David
The
Cage
Pandora's
storytelling.
Oh god.
right. So Telltale nailed it. Okay, they nailed it. They
Sometimes.
did episodic games and they spaced it out with good fucking story. And then David Cage come along and is like, right, I'm just gonna get out my floppy dick here and see if I can make it look what I would call prettier, nicer, and longer. And none of that he can obtain sometimes, whilst also maybe sometimes obtaining it. Just
Wait,
fuck
did you
off.
just make it sound like this. You know what this sounds like? Like you made an analogy at the same time about like the Telltale having like a smaller, uglier looking penis, but at least it can stay erect, while David Cage is like a bigger penis and it looks pretty, but it can't maintain its erection. That's what it sounded like, actually, instead of talking about storytelling.
You know what?
This took a weird penis-shaped detour.
Doesn't it always take a weird penis
I'm
shape?
tired now. I'm running out of things to say.
Isn't there a thing that's isn't there like going off track or it going sideways? Isn't there like an expression going pear-shaped? Isn't that also a thing that they say?
I mean, everything goes pear-shaped in the end.
Otherwise, we could call going.
What?
Otherwise, we could like rephrase that and we could call it going penis-shaped, because that's how it goes all the time.
A cock up.
It's a cock up, yeah. Oh my god.
I love.
I mean,
cock-ups. Anyway,
there's a lot of things. At the same time, there's a lot of things that we could also be very thankful for, to maybe wrap it up in a positive way. There are bad things that aren't really as common anymore. Like shitty control schemes used to be more prominent than now. A lot of games
true.
can really give you like a nice smooth control scheme, and it's not really all that something that's a problem anymore. And like definitely not in the AAA. If they're good for anything, at least they can give you like some solid control schemes. So that's something. But I can't say that obnoxious art styles have gone out of vogue, because Fortnite's still one of the most popular games, and they look like a rainbow vomited on Wish.com, and then somebody ordered that. I don't know. It's like rainbow vomit.
that's the best thing I've ever heard.
I don't know what it is.
Aren't both companies owned by Tencent?
It's like really vibrant colors that clash, and then like an obnoxious, ugly, cartoony art style. I mean, not saying that cartoony art styles are bad, but
Absolutely
they're
not.
overused.
I wouldn't say there is such a thing as the cartoony art style, right?
No, but there is,
There's
for
always
example,
nuances
the
to it.
Blizzard trademark traditional art style that a lot of companies are ripping off and doing worse. And I would say that to some degree, it feels like Fortnite has done that, but if you like order it on Wish, and then the mailman just stomps on it because he hates you before he puts it through your mailbox. That's kind of what it...
What did you do to your mailman?
It wasn't
I thought
me.
it's always the mailman doing something to you.
It was a dog. It wasn't me.
Oh.
My dog molested... No, that's not true. Just like humped the mailman.
Oh no!
Is your dog perchance a Ubisoft employee?
Now he is.
Oh god, he's a surprise hugger.
He's-
His dog's a surprise licker.
He wasn't.
Eh.
He wasn't, but after that mailman incident, he's now like the second in command under Yves Jumeau.
Jesus. That's a quick rise up the company ladder, especially for,
I mean, yeah, in
less intelligent now.
Ubisoft, you really have to climb your way to the top, just literally by climbing on top of people. That's how it works there. Oh my god.
I see how a dog would have
This is all true in Minecraft, right? In Minecraft. I mean, we don't want to have a cease and desist type of shit situation.
Oh yeah,
in Minecraft.
Absolutely. It's crafting.
Crafty people there.
Surprise hyper
I'm
cat.
saying, in a bad way. God damn it.
But yeah, you made a good point. There are things that have improved tremendously with the video game industry, but at the same time, you have more marketing and monetary schemes coming in, which I think you cannot fault the industry itself for.
No.
That's just how the business
That's
works.
just capitalism.
Yeah.
Capitalism.
That just comes down to investors and stuff. And if we can't get to a system where investors aren't as greedy and just... We need to move to an investment system where it's more like what you would have with now people investing through like Kickstarter and stuff, where the people investing are investing because they believe in the project, not because they want money out of it. That's where investments capitally have to go as well, but I don't know how that would happen. Especially for the...
I mean, ideally, you would want to have both, right? You can't have a video game industry that's built on belief only. Eventually, it will have to make a return.
Yeah, but it can't keep making a higher and higher return. That's just always impossible.
Exactly. There's a bubble that can burst, and if we're not careful, this industry is gonna reach its tipping point in the not so far future.
But the thing is, as long as there's a demand, an industry itself is not gonna disappear. Yeah. The only thing that can happen is the main companies that are now called the AAA companies could have a complete fall from grace and completely be obliterated and out of the market, basically.
Aside from the people that are affected by that, I wouldn't argue that that's bad.
I mean, I have the same idea when it comes to the music industry. I would also wish that fucking dinosaur would sink. But then not for the people, obviously, like you said, on lower levels. Because when the Titanic sinks, that the people on the lower levels are the first ones to be in the water. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that, but that's like I said, that's same as with the surprise hugging. That's something that's not really specific to the gaming industry. That's like a broader problem that also happens to have an impact on the gaming industry.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could do an entire episode on the downfall of capitalism, but I'm actually now thinking if we had a video game communism, we would have never gotten Mother Russia Bleeds.
Lol.
Yep.
Kind of depends on what you.
Pretty much. That made me giggle.
Kind of depends on what you get right. But yeah, that's. I feel like we've touched on most things that we could when it comes to like video games and things that really suck about games. There's a lot of things that we aren't really that important to us. Like, for example, there's other people that could basically, if people want to react to this and just put down the things that they really hate. For example, if you're really a person that really cares about graphics to an absurd level. I mean, I'm as someone who's like somewhat of a designer by education, basically, it does like clashing colors and things that look ugly. That does have an effect on me, and it does take me out of the gameplay loop. It does. I'm not someone who's completely unbiased when it comes to graphics. I'm not gonna say like, oh, this game is amazing, and the fact that the graphics are bad doesn't bother me. I'm not really like that, but I can appreciate an art style as well. So for example, for me, if a game looks like it's like in an 8-bit art style, because that's what a 16-bit is more common, I would suppose. If they would do that, like that's still a choice of an art style, and that could look beautiful as well. So that's not what I mean by graphics. What could annoy me when it comes to graphics would be more like art design stuff that just looks bad, despite the art style. Or an art style that just looks bad. Like, for example, I don't think PS1 is an aesthetic. That's just a limitation for the time. Okay. So that's not something... You don't need to make PS1 or PS2 games now. They're just making ugly shit. So that's not...
You must hate the color magenta by now.
Why?
Because of, like, what was it? Bleeding Edge and, like, all of these...
And Rage 2.
Using the color magenta for some reason.
Yeah. No, there was...
Oh, yeah, Rage 2.
There was a time, and that's just a design thing, when the primary printing colors, like cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, just as pure colors, were really popular. Just as, like, design main colors. I don't know why, but that was really a time for that, when they didn't really want to, like, blend colors together, and they just used, like, pure colors. Like, because magenta doesn't have... Like, if you print something in magenta... That's like a full color. There's no dots there to make it appear like a different color. So, yeah. That was an aesthetic at one point.
Ask the German Telecom. They still do it.
I was going to say it was an aesthetic at one point, but like sometimes it's still... There's some things that want to catch that vibe. I think even Cyberpunk has something like that, doesn't it?
The yellow. Yeah, absolutely.
So whatever.
Anyway.
That's more of like a design type of thing. Then we touched on the storytelling as well. We basically touched on everything. But if there's something you feel so strongly about that you want to express it down in the comment section below, just write it down. And we'll definitely...
And if you want to gatekeep, please do.
I mean, I can't force anyone else who's here, but I'll definitely have a look at it and I'll respond to whatever you write down there. Whatever your pet peeve is. Maybe it's something that I can agree with. Maybe... If they'll come and check it, maybe they'll agree with it. We'll just see. We can have a nice discussion.
Wow. Hot opinions.
Or you can tell us to kill yourself.
Or you can gatekeep or something.
Cool. That's good.
Welcome to the internet.
Okay. But I guess
We don't really have an outro. It's just when Bram says bye.
we don't really have an outro. Normally there's just rambling and then it gets cut off. That's normally how it ends. But
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
I guess at this point,
bye.
we're just gonna be... I'm just gonna say,